Only those with excellent social standing and those from filthy rich families are lucky enough to spend their time here at the elite private school, Ouran Academy. The Ouran Host Club is where the school's handsomest of boys, with too much time on their hands, entertain young girls who also have way too much time on their hands. Just think of it as Ouran Academy's elegant playground for the super rich and beautiful.
Welcome. When I opened the door, I found the host club.
Kiss, kiss for love.
Ouran Highschool Host Club is a 2006 reverse harem romantic comedy drama anime animated by Studio Bones, written by Yoji Inokido, and directed by Takuya Igarashi. It is based on the manga of the same name written by Baisuko Hattori.
The anime centers around Haruhi Fujioka, who is in her first year of being a scholarship student at the prestigious Ouran Academy, a private school exclusively for rich kids. When looking for a quiet place to study, Haruhi stumbles upon the third music room, the place of the Ouran Host Club, a club consisting of 6 male students who gather to entertain female students at the school with their looks, as well as sweets and tea. During their initial encounter, Haruhi accidentally breaks an antique vase that was valued at 8 million yen, which is around $80,000, and must work off the debt as the club's errand boy. But when they discover Haruhi's hidden looks and natural talent at entertaining girls, they promote her to full host status. Here's the catch though: due to her short hair, slouching attire, gender-ambiguous face, and her complete indifference in the matter, Haruhi is mistaken as a boy by everyone. And despite the members of the host club eventually finding out that Haruhi is a girl, Haruhi decides that being a host and getting fussed over by a bunch of girls might not be too bad.
Even though I first watched Ouran Highschool Host Club almost 10 years later, it is still without a doubt my favorite anime of all time. It's the anime that I've seen the most, the one that I know the most about, and the one that makes me the most happy. I've been wanting to talk about this anime the most during this entire project. It took way longer than I ever meant it to. So let's stop with the padding and get right down to it. Expect major spoilers ahead, because I'm going to be talking about almost everything in the anime. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Studio Bones is my favorite Japanese animation studio of all time. I think judging by the fact that they've animated 4 anime in my top 10 list, 5 if you count Cowboy Bebop, which I do, and it's no wonder. And while Studio Bones is mostly known for their action anime like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, Soul Eater, and of course My Hero Academia, they also have a love for their more simpler and laid-back anime, like Snow White with the Red Hair, Carole Tuesday, and of course, Ouran High School Host Club.
I absolutely love the color palette for this anime. I also love how blue the host club's uniform absolutely clashed with the entirety of the Academy's pink aesthetic. And holy shit, is this school pink! Even the giant clock tower is pink. The colors are so bright and vibrant in the anime that it's so pleasant to look at, especially whenever the host club presents different sweets and cakes. I want to be like honey and eat them all up.
I think that the cinematography and shot placement of each scene is amazing as well.
I don't know why, but I really love this moment of Haruhi running through the halls to get her bag in the garden and running past Saika, who threw the bag into the water. The shadows, the movement, the sound of Haruhi's footsteps running. I don't know why, I just really dig this scene. There's just something about the way that each shot is placed and how the characters move within each shot that I love. And I think that's because the cinematography and shot placement have nice symmetry to it. And I'm not just talking about the scenes when the twins move together, but how everything looks. Everything just looks so nice together. It's great to look at. It makes my OCD brain really happy. It's in moments like these that the anime enhances the scenes from the original manga.
While I adore the art of the manga, there's not that much detail in the backgrounds or how the characters are placed, especially in these early chapters that the anime adapts from. It gets better as the manga goes on, as most manga do, but the art at the beginning is pretty simple. This is where the animation of the anime adaptation enhances the original material. It makes the scenes more dynamic and emotionally resonant, which is a point I'll talk about again later on.
The animation also does well in the comedy department with its great use of visual gags. I love the arrows that obnoxiously draw our attention to things that we need to pay attention to, like the vase or banana peels. The character expressions are great as well, hilariously exaggerated to comedic effect. The pink flowers that surround Honey when he's being cute that actually turns when he does. Whenever Renge laughs and levitates from underneath the ground spinning with her motorized stage, I'm in stitches. Also, I love the part in episode 5 when the twins are fighting and they are throwing things at each other. Honey's bunny Usa-chan gets involved, and Honey gets roped into the fight trying to save him. And when the stroke is repeated later on in the episode, Morty gets roped in as well while trying to save Honey. It makes the comedic scenes that were already funny because of the dialogue and voice acting even funnier.
This is what happens when an anime adaptation goes beyond just animating the panels of the manga, but instead enhances it in its animated medium. And now let's get into what will probably be the longest part of this video, the characters, because I love every single character in this anime, from the male characters of our host club to the side characters and even to one-off characters. I love them all so much. They mean so much to me, and I don't know what I'd do without them. So, for however long it takes, I'm going to talk about each of the host club members individually, talk about some of the side characters, and even mention some of the one-off characters. So strap in, folks, I love all these characters for a reason. First, let's talk about the 7 members of the Ouran High School Host Club, starting with the natural type, Haruhi Fujioka, who is the anime's main heroine, one of my favorite female characters in anime, and my first official anime crush when I was 16. Oh, those were the days. And what I appreciate about Haruhi the more and more times I rewatch the anime is how different she is from most main heroines in other shoujo manga and anime.
Hell, she's the main heroine of a reversed harem anime that doesn't want to be the main heroine in a reversed harem anime. That's fucking hilarious. Especially early on, Haruhi doesn't care about most things that are going on around her. She doesn't care about her being in the host club, she doesn't care about all these good-looking boys around her, and she doesn't care about all the adventures that she's forced to go on. All she wants to do is get some time to herself so that she can study. This is all in complete opposite of most shoujo manga and anime heroines, especially at the time. In these cases, the girls would be delighted to be surrounded by a bunch of rich and handsome boys that fawn all over her, and she'd be attracted to them, unable to decide which boy to start a relationship with. But in the anime, Haruhi doesn't do that. She doesn't find herself blushing in front of any of the boys, and she doesn't care how rich they all are. She ultimately couldn't be bothered with their extravagant lifestyle. But as time goes on and Haruhi spends more time with the host club, she expresses a desire to know more about their lives and family, sometimes in order to help them along the way, which helps her to not just be a negative and sarcastic main heroine all the time, but a thoughtful and kind one.
Haruhi, especially at the time, features a few unique queer qualities that isn't really seen in most shoujo manga and anime heroines.
For one thing, she has a very gender-fluid expression. For reasons that I'll discuss later, Haruhi could care less about her appearance. Because a kid puts some gum in her hair, she cuts it super short and doesn't care how it looks. And because she can't afford the female uniform, she wears some masculine clothing. Because again, she really doesn't care. This is what helps the host club mistake her for a boy at first. Haruhi never really seems to mind wearing either the male uniform or the female uniform. She just continues to wear the male one in order to work off her debt at the host club. Outside of school, she sometimes wears masculine clothing and sometimes wears feminine clothing. The only time she puts on super feminine clothing is whenever her dad forces her to. Haruhi says that while she's biologically female, she doesn't care if people think she's a boy or a girl, and because of that, Haruhi is sort of kind of a gender-fluid character. Alongside this, even though the anime doesn't go far enough with it, Haruhi is also kind of bisexual, which is seen throughout different parts of the anime. For one, she does a really good job wooing the girls with her natural style. The girls wouldn't all fall for Haruhi if she didn't put some effort into it. And Haruhi doesn't seem to mind having a bunch of girls fuss over her, as evident by what is perhaps my favorite line in the anime, even if it isn't translated correctly in the English dub.
Being a host and getting fussed over by a bunch of girls might not be that bad. I wonder how I can pull it off. I've got it! I'll just call everyone dude and bro now.
But the biggest case of this possible bisexuality is at the end of episode 2 when Haruhi accidentally kisses Kanako on the lips and her reaction is,
I never would have thought that I'd end up giving my first kiss to another girl. But it was such an amazing night. So I guess it's just as well.
The idea of kissing a girl, even with her first kiss, isn't strange or weird to her. It's just unexpected. But because the night was fun and the host club accomplished their mission, then it doesn't matter in the end.
These examples do point to a possible bisexuality within Haruhi, but the anime ultimately doesn't do anything with it. But in the end, adding these queer elements onto her, Haruhi is one of the most unique and different shoujo heroine out there in manga and anime.
Tamaki Suo is the president of the host club and their self-proclaimed king. He also happens to be half French and half Japanese and the son of the chairman of Ouran Academy. There are two sides of Tamaki that make him an interesting character. One side of him is being flamboyant and narcissistic, and is the princely type at the host club. Tamaki is the comic relief character of the anime, usually being the butt of every joke, especially with the twins and Haruhi. He's outspoken and naive for his age, often getting upset and depressed at the slightest upset and insult. The other side to Tamaki has to do with his past of being separated from his mother, having a weird obsession with family, which he believes his host club to be a part of. He sees himself as the father figure, Kyoya as the mother, Haruhi as his daughter, the twins as the brothers, and Honey and Mori as the uncles. The biggest takeaway from this is that since Tamaki isn't perceptive about his own feelings, thinking that his feelings for Haruhi to be that of an obsessive father instead of a boy being in love with a girl. At the same time though, Tamaki truly does care about everyone in his life, especially the host club and the female visitors. He is an honest princely type to his customers, and he wants to do everything in his power to help those that are in need of it. And the thing that makes him such a great character, both comedically and dramatically, is how genuine Tamaki is in everything that he does and say. He is never half-assing or playing pretend. Everything that he exhibits and shows to the world is his honest and true self. Hikaru and Kaoru are the Itachi twins, who are the naughty type of the host club, while also using their brotherly love to excite the girls.
Because, well, let me have them explain it.
Having a couple of good-looking guys with homosexual tendencies earns the club high points. It also helps if the two struggle between their attraction and their friendship.
And in our case, because we're twins, our relationship is taboo, and therefore more intriguing.
And besides, who hasn't fantasized about twins? Having two loves is better than one, don't you think?
It's a young woman's romantic fantasy.
Well, yeah, you're right. I can't take it!
Twincest, motherfuckers!
There is a certain tug at your collar feeling whenever you see some of these moments, but the anime makes clear that these moments of brotherly love just exist within the host club in order to make the girls happy, and that anything seen outside of the host club is just because the twins are super close, which ties into their feelings of people never being able to determine which one of them is Hikaru and which one of them is Kaoru, causing them to block themselves off from the rest of the world and rely only on each other. The person that breaks them out of their shell is Tamaki, which is seen in a very emotional and thought-provoking flashback episode of the twins joining the host club. And the only one that is able to tell the twins apart is Haruhi, which could possibly explain their attraction to her, and this also helps the twins to open up more around people outside of the host club, as noted by some of Haruhi's classmates. The twins are usually in perfect sync with each other, always doing the same moves and often speaking the same words at the same time, often having with the girls at the host club by playing the Which One of Us is Hikaru game, a game that only Haruhi has been able to always beat. They are also able to execute long cons in order to get what they want without anybody realizing it. For example, in episode 5, the twins start fighting with each other after Haruhi makes a snide comment about Hikaru. The fight continues to escalate and escalate until Haruhi steps in to stop them, saying that if they don't stop fighting, she'll never invite them to her place, which ended up being the twins' plan all along. There was also the time that they pretended to have Kaoru get hurt in order to use this in their brotherly love, in order to gain favor with Misuzu and win the current competition. Despite the two of them acting like the same person, Hikaru and Kaoru are separate people with different personalities and viewpoints. Hikaru can be a bit of a smart mouth and can be rude whenever something doesn't go his way, like when he gets jealous of Arai being so close with Haruhi. He's also oblivious to his feelings towards Haruhi. Kaoru is a little bit of the opposite. Kaoru is more thoughtful and nice when he isn't with his brother. He is more aware of his and other people's feelings, including his and his brother's situation and Hikaru's love for Haruhi, which he tries to help by setting the two of them up on a date so that Hikaru can learn to open himself up to other people. But he isn't completely self-aware, as Honey notes that Kaoru also probably has feelings for Haruhi without realizing it.
All of these aspects make Hikaru and Kaoru a compelling set of twins whose journey is intriguing to follow. And on a smaller note, I have been a huge Hikaru and Haruhi shipper since the first time I watched Ouran Highschool Host Club, and I always will be. And no, I don't care what happens in the manga. Let me dream!
Despite his appearance and cute demeanor, Mitsukuni Haninazuka, also known as Honey, is a third year and the boy Lolita of the host club, making the girls fawn all over her and scream in moe delight. Honey loves two things the most in the world, sweets and his stuffed bunny Usa-chan. By the by, I would kill to get my own Usa-chan. These two loves of his create a very funny episode when both are put into danger. Despite all this though, Honey is actually an expert in martial arts and might be the strongest person of all Japan, causing some funny situations when we see him at his full unbridled strength. In my opinion, Honey doesn't really become interesting until we learn of this martial arts skill, then he becomes fucking hysterical. However, Honey is a third year, so he is a little more wise than his first and second year companions. Him and Mori are able to see things that the others are unable to, like Tamaki, Hikaru, and Kaoru's feelings towards Haruhi.
Though he does state that Kyoya likes Haruhi, and this ends up being wrong, but hey, 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Tatsuki Moninozuka, also known as Mori, is also a third year, is Honey's cousin, and is the strong but silent type of the host club, often being paired with Honey when interacting with the girls in order to give them some moe. He is tall, quiet, and looks a little intimidating, but is just a big teddy bear. Though not as good as Honey, Mori is also an expert at martial arts. Because of their family's history, Mori is very protective of Honey, getting super worried when Honey gets lost in a forest spa, and blames himself when Honey gets a cavity, even though it's not his fault whatsoever. There's not that much to Mori as a character, working the best when paired with Honey, though it is kind of funny that he only says like 1 or 2 things an episode, usually just 1 or 2 words in episodes, and sometimes not even that, just a grunt, which makes it even funnier when he suddenly speaks in long sentences.
I see you've saved the best for last, my dear.
If I must.
Take my hand.
I believe it's my turn.
Here's the
Excuse
best.
us?
And the last host club member to talk about is Kyoya Otori, who is the vice president of the host club and is the cool type. Kyoya is best friends with Tamaki despite their completely different attitudes and opinions. He is secretive and highly intelligent, using the host club's assets to give himself some financial and social benefits that helps both him and his family's businesses. Because of this, he is considered to be the Shadow King, running the club behind the scenes by influencing Tamaki and their guests. Because of his intelligence, Kyoya is the most aware character of his surroundings, which allowed him to become immediately aware of Haruhi being a girl upon her entrance, while the other host club members needed some hints in order to figure it out. That is, except for Tamaki, who needed to actually see Haruhi change in order to figure it out. Kyoya is someone that only does stuff if he gets something out of it. This even including his friendship with Tamaki and being a member of the host club. He is like this because of his backstory, seen in episode 24, which is honestly one of the more compelling episodes of the anime. Kyoya is the third son to his father, a wealthy business owner that deals with hospital management and other things medical related. But as the third son with 2 older brothers, Kyoya can't hope to become the next appointed head of the family. So he is raised to remain in his defined role as the youngest child, meant to stay in his lane and support his older siblings. But thanks to meeting Tamaki, Kyoya is able to break free from his role and show his true potential, doing everything he can in order to prove to his father that he should be the head of the family business instead of his 2 other brothers, which is why Kyoya only does things that benefit either himself or his family. But as Haruhi points out, Kyoya sometimes breaks this ideal set, and actually does care about others. Like when he and Haruhi end up shopping together at a mall, Kyoya points out the false nature of an antique to an older woman who is about to buy it. While seeming good nature at first, Kyoya points out that the woman is the wife of an influential man that could help to benefit his family. But Haruhi later points out that at first glance, Kyoya wouldn't have been able to notice this.
It just doesn't make sense. You go to all that trouble acting like you're such a big jerk when being a nice guy comes so naturally to you. It seems counterintuitive.
That's a very intriguing notion in its own way.
Kyoya is quite honestly one of the most compelling members of the cast, with his journey and backstory episodes containing some of the most interesting scenes in the anime. Which is crazy when you learn that, fun fact, as stated by the manga's original author, Baisuko Hattori, if the first chapter of the manga was just 5 pages shorter, Kyoya might not have even existed in the story at all. And that is just crazy. In the end, I love each of the members of the host club, and they are some of my favorite main characters in all of anime. But these episodes would get a little repetitive if it wasn't for the anime's wonderful side characters, who show up every so often. And let's start with the self-proclaimed manager of the host club, Renge.
Otaku? I've never seen one!
While many can find Renge's frequent use and yelling to be a little annoying, I happen to find her to be super cute and really funny. Interesting to note is that as someone who calls herself the manager of the host club, Renge barely shows up in the original manga. It's in the anime that she shows up the most, like helping Nakazawa get over his fear of light, helping Shudo develop his character, and being the announcer to Honey and Chika's fight. Renge is just a ton of fun, a complete ball of energy. Whenever she would randomly start laughing and ascend from the floor on her spinning stage, I'm always laughing and have a giant smile on my face. It actually makes me curious if she just lives down there and comes up when she thinks she's needed. Though that would make her hearing pretty selective, because if not, she'd learn that Haruhi is a girl pretty early on. Renge also does the job of explaining why certain concepts in cosplays are attractive to the girls, as I'm sure the general audience would have no idea why stuff like this would make all these girls squeeze so hard.
Renge is a cute and fun character that is better utilized in the anime, making her one of my favorite characters on the show.
Nakazawa is the leader of the Black Magic Club, is always dressed in black, lives in the darkness, and carries around his puppet friend Belzenaf. It turns out that he is actually a very handsome prince like Tamaki, but because he suffers from a severe case of photophobia, he always hides his appearance with a black cloak and wig. This also doesn't help with the fact that his younger sister Kirimi is extremely afraid of the dark and all things scary, bringing us a funny and emotional journey of Nakazawa in episode 11. Kasanoda is the son of a powerful Yakuza group that everyone is afraid of due to his scary face and growling attitude. This is despite the fact that Kasanoda is actually pretty sweet and kind. He just wants to be friends so that he can... What was it again?
Kick the can! Kick the can! Kick the can!
Kick the can! Kick the can! Kick the can! Kick the can!
Well, for starters, why even kick the can?
I do love how Casanova and even his gang go against the Yakuza stereotype. I've already talked about Casanova, but his gang is pretty likable too. They just want his young lord to be happy and do their best to be good friends with him. But of course, my favorite thing about Casanova is how much of an absolute confused and dumbass bisexual he is. Listen, he was crushing on Haruhi before he walked into her changing. And the girls' reactions to what they think is a boy trying to confess to another boy is pretty hilarious.
I'd like to request Fujioka.
What is this? Is he for real? The genuine article. At long last! Renge, is it true? Is he really? Could he really be that kind of persuasion?
What are they going on about?
But in the end, his crush on Haruhi is actually pretty cute, despite being pushed heavily into the friend zone. Some of my favorite recurring characters of Ouran High School Host Club is the Zuka Club, consisting of Lobelia Academy students Benio, Chizuru, and Hinako, and to deal with them and their club is... well, let me just have them explain it.
A maiden's beauty. It means possessing a spirit pure enough to not give in to power or to lust.
As a girl, For a girl, we've had quite enough of all your oppressive male contempt for womankind.
And our pride comes from having meaningful relationships based on equality. Because we're the same sex. And yes, that includes relationships of love.
Yeah, you tell them, Benio.
You're awesome, Benibata!
This whole deal is even funnier when you realize that the characters are a parody of the Terakazuka Revue, so I've come to appreciate and love these characters the more I learn about the acting group. In real life, the Terakazuka Revue, as I've mentioned before in the past, is a revue where women play both gender roles, have a very energetic female fan base, and on stage the actors always wear extravagant and elegant costumes.
The Zuka Club in Ouran just takes all of that and bumps it up by 100. As they mentioned before, these three girls are definitely in love with each other, the female fanbase is obsessed with Benio, and the outfits and makeup they wear is just insane. This parody is put into the extreme when you realize that the three girls are straw feminists, and that they automatically think that all men are the worst and should be cast out from society, leaving only women in charge, which makes them great rivals to the host club.
Their 2 episode appearances are a lot of fun, and even better when you learn about their real-life counterparts.
Ranka is Haruhi's father and is kind of one of the best fathers in all of anime, doing his best to raise Haruhi in the best way he can since his wife passed away. But as we see through flashbacks, Haruhi has sometimes needed to take care of her father. Ranka is also a bisexual crossdresser, working at a drag bar and always wearing feminine attire. Despite being married to a woman before, Ranka states that he can never love another woman after his deceased wife, but men are all good to go. Ranka's bisexuality and crossdressing is probably the reason that Haruhi is the way that she is, in the fact that she doesn't care about her appearance or sexuality. It's shown that Ranka crossdressed when Haruhi was very little, and since that's how Haruhi grew up seeing her father, she's never thought that crossdressing was weird. And since Ranka doesn't care about how people see his feminine appearance, that's probably why Haruhi doesn't care about how she looks or if someone is a boy or a girl. It's what's inside that counts.
Listen, Senpai, I don't really care whether you guys recognize me as a boy or a girl. In my opinion, it's more important for a person to be recognized for who they are rather than for what sex they are.
It's honestly pretty rare to see a queer parent in media, and in Ouran, it only shows that it can influence a child in a positive way, allowing Haruhi to have a more open mindset and accept things more easily. And the last supporting characters that I'll talk about are the girls that frequently visit the host club.
Each of the girls are super cute, and while I never remember any of their names, I do remember them in the end, mostly because the girls are always seen with their favorite hosts that they always visit. For example, Kurukano is always with Haruhi, and this super cute short-haired girl is always with Hikaru and Karu, but they do cross over sometimes and find the other hosts attractive as well. I happen to find Kyoya's girls to be particularly interesting. While most of the girls are always squealing and shouting their excitement, Kyoya's girls are more quiet and simple. They seem more matured and sophisticated than the others, which fits in well with Kyoya's personality, probably why they are attracted to him. The girls who visit the host club always bring comedy to the host scenes due to their easily excitable personalities and their love for the boys.
And of course, certain episodes are highlighted by excellent one-off characters that make each episode unique, and I'll talk about some of my favorites starting with Kanako, the featured character of episode 2.
Her story and supposed unrequited love is compelling, and it's interesting to learn why she has a recent case of host hopping. And a certain moment of this episode, thanks to Kaneko's story, helps the anime be more than just a comedic romp in just the second episode, but a dramatic and insightful one as well. It also happens to be one of my favorite moments of the entire anime.
Looks like we just made matters worse.
But he did go running after her.
It's our responsibility as members of the elite Ouran Host Club to make every girl happy.
Shiro is an elementary school student who shows up at the host club to be Tamaki's apprentice. According to Renge, Shiro is the naughty boy type, a shota if you will, and he actually fully comes to embrace it by the end of the episode, though his initial reactions to the host club antics are pretty hilarious.
It's forbidden brotherly love! They're homos! And they're brothers! That makes this totally incestuous!
I think what you meant to say was incestuous.
Definitely a different reaction to this kid.
There's debauchery here! Yay! There's debauchery here! Isn't there?
Misuzu is Ronka's co-worker and a very fashionable crossdresser who loves all things refreshing. He owns the bed and breakfast Pension Misuzu in Karurizala, which serves as the location for 2 episodes in the middle of the anime. I also happen to adore Sony Straight's performance of his. Rai shows up in the 2 episodes mentioned before and is an old classmate of Haruhi's back in middle school. It turns out that he had a crush on Haruhi, though in a very hilarious scene it turns out that his confession completely flew over Haruhi's head. But in the end, Haruhi is just a solid nice guy and is actually kind of interesting to see a part of Haruhi's past before going to Ouran Academy, back when her hair was still long and she would wear the school's female uniform. Yasuku Chika Honeynozuka, also known as Chika, is Honey's younger brother. Like him, he excels his martial arts, but hates the way that Honey acts. Chika actually comes across as kind of one note for a majority of the episode, but then gets really funny when he claims that his own older brother is an alien. Mostly because of the amount of cake he eats every night without his body mass changing at all. And the last one-off character that I want to talk about is Soga, the class president of 1A. It helps that he is featured in my favorite episode of the entire show. Soga is afraid of basically everything, so it doesn't help that the previously mentioned episode is a Halloween episode. His unrequited love towards Kuro Kano is sweet, though the fact that Soga doesn't do anything with these feelings because he knows that she has a crush on Haruhi is kind of funny.
So, yeah, if it wasn't entirely clear by this super long session, I love the entire cast of Ouran High School Host Club, from the main characters of the host club, the side characters, and even the one-off characters. I love every single character half to death. So I've watched this anime more times than I can count, in both languages. And even though I know the punchlines of jokes and know when they're coming, I still laugh hard at a lot of them. And I think the successfulness of this comedy comes from the fact that the jokes are very personality-based.
For example, jokes that come from Tamaki are different from jokes that would come from Honey. Funny reactions to current events that would come from Haruhi are different from the reactions that I might get from Kyoya. As I mentioned before, even Hikaru and Karu have slightly different personalities that make them distinct from each other. It's because the personalities of the characters are so strong, the comedy that comes from them are different from each other, which means that we aren't always getting the same jokes over and over again. And because the situations that the host club find themselves in are so bizarre, it's fun to see how each of them will react to the situation differently, which always brings in great comedy. Some of my favorite moments of comedy come from when the characters will break the fourth wall. They'll mention events of previous episodes while calling them episodes. They think that Mori is acting up because he never gets any lines in most episodes. And of course, there's this infamous line.
This anime is obviously a romantic school comedy. Haruhi and I are the main characters, so that means we are love interests. Yeah, then what are we? You boys are the homosexual supporting cast. So please make sure that you don't step across this line. You've got to be kidding.
And just like in the manga, these fourth wall breaks never take you out of the moment or make you take the events of the story any less seriously. They are just really fun jokes that endear you to the characters even more.
Now, with all the comedy that Ouran High School Host Club has every episode, you might expect any attempts of drama to fall flat on its ass. But honest to God, and I still don't know how, it really fucking works. Somehow, some fucking how, the drama works so well alongside the comedy and never feels forced. Even in my previous video talking about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, sometimes the comedy is a little shoved in at times and would ruin some of the dramatic moments. But that never happens in Ouran for me.
The drama enhances our understanding of the characters and makes us love them more and more, which helps to make the comedy even better. Because we've been laughing and enjoying ourselves with the characters, we are ready to learn and experience all of their drama. I think the writing and the pacing also helps. Each episode is perfectly paced and giving enough time for its comedy and its drama depending on what the episode requires.
And something that helps with this is how expertly the anime adapts the corresponding episodes from the original manga. While the anime will adapt these chapters pretty faithfully for the most part, it's in the little changes that helps the drama excel in the show.
It changes the order and resolutions of certain scenes in order to help the story flow better as a TV show instead of just putting the panels on screen in color. For example, while the manga will often end a certain chapter or multi-chapter storyline with a little joke after a possible dramatic moment, the anime will sometimes decide to end on the dramatic moment instead. And it's because of this that you remember these dramatic moments more so that they more emotionally resonate with you than they might have in the original manga.
This adaptation of page to screen is no more different than in episode 13, the Alice in Wonderland episode. While both manga and anime do an Alice in Wonderland storyline, they each execute it differently. In the manga, it's more of a parody chapter, with characters constantly switching into different roles. For example, first Tamaki is Alice, then Mori, and then finally Haruhi. Also, the host club members are aware of who they are and the fact that they are doing an Alice in Wonderland parody. There is a ton of fourth wall breaks in this chapter, and the overall tone is comedy.
The anime version of the Alice in Wonderland parody is almost completely different, and that's because it has a story to it. It starts with Haruhi and Ranka visiting Ouran Academy right when Haruhi was graduating middle school. Haruhi wanders off and finds herself falling down the rabbit hole. From there, she runs into the anime's characters as the Alice in Wonderland characters. The episode has a very dreamlike state to it, and some of it is very surreal. The characters continue to talk about Haruhi's specific quirks and convinces her how much she's changed since going to Ouran Academy and joining the host club, becoming a more open person that can have fun from time to time. And in what is probably the most emotional moment in the anime, after learning that the King of Hearts is her father Ranka, there was only one person that the Queen of Hearts could possibly be.
You've gotten so big. Where does the time go? I'm sorry. I made it so hard for you. And so, now is the time to make up for that, Haruhi. Don't be afraid to enjoy yourself, all right?
The Alice in Wonderland episode is proof of how good of an adaptation the anime is from the original manga, because it enhances and even adds all this nuance and dramatic scenes, which, in my opinion, makes the anime better than the corresponding chapters of the original manga. Ouran Highschool Host Club also has some great piano and violin music that fits in nicely with the anime's fancy and elegant aesthetic. I particularly like the violin and piano instrumental pieces of the anime's opening themes. And speaking of, while the opening and ending themes of the anime aren't anything to write home about, it does do that anime cliche of starting the ending theme in the last moments of the episode, and I absolutely love that. It's become more apparent as the years go on, but Ouran Highschool Host Club is undeniably a parody of various aspects of otaku culture. I've talked about the parody of the Terukazuka Revue that the anime does with the Zuka Club, but there are others seen throughout.
Like with cosplay, for example, as the host club will frequently dress up in different styles in order to delight the ladies, like an Indian palace or a Caribbean aesthetic. And the host club, with the exception of Mori, cross-dresses in an attempt to get Haruhi to stay in the host club. But the otaku culture that the anime definitely shows the most is fangirls' obsession with shipping male characters together, no matter the context. This is parodied in the anime with reactions that the girls have towards the host club members, the duo of Honey and Mori, the twins' brotherly love, and whenever Tamaki goes crazy over Haruhi. Otaku girls have a weird obsession with shipping two male characters from a property together, even if the product does not indicate them being a couple whatsoever.
It's a tradition that goes all the way back to shipping Captain Kirk and Spock from the original Star Trek together. For example, probably one of the still most popular of these kinds of ships in anime in recent memory is shipping Deku with either Bakugo or Todoroki from My Hero Academia. And I'm not someone to judge on this matter of shipping, but it is an aspect of female otaku culture. Female fans can often get overly crazy at times. Just listen to Travis Willingham, the voice of Mori in the English dub, talk about the infamous Flying Glomp story.
Girl with some ears on looks at me and her eyes just go wide, right? And she goes, and just starts booking. She's like, I didn't know what she was doing, and I played football, so I went, oh. I'm standing over and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I was trying to glop you. I'm like, what's a glop? She's like, it's a tackle hug. I'm like, that was not a hug.
And in the anime, the host club uses this thing that the girls love to their advantage.
In Honey and Mori's case, the girls love the amount of moe that it creates. With the twins, well, I refer you to that previous clip, to the insane delight that they experience in the fact that Kasanoda is confessing to Haruhi, who again the girls believe to be a boy. It's just something that a lot of girls like to participate in. Hell, even though Renge is in love with Haruhi, listen to what she has to say in episode 5.
I thought you had feelings for Haruhi as well.
Oh, I do! But I have no problem with Haruhi having a homosexual relationship on the side.
And while this can bring some stereotypes of gay male relationships that unfortunately is featured in a majority of yaoi and BL anime and manga, because a lot of girls happen to like those stereotypes, most of the time, it's harmless, which I've talked about before in various videos. But something smart that the anime does is that it doesn't demean the girls for acting this way.
It would be so easy to make the girls seem like lesser people for their shipping obsession, but it never takes the easy route. The joke of the situation comes from characters like Haruhi and Shudo being absolutely confused about the entire matter. But in Haruhi's case, she never looks at the girls negatively because of it. She doesn't make fun of them or put them down for their feelings, just sighs at these crazy witch people. It's only when the girls' antics get a little too out of hand, like with Renge at the end of episode 4, that she feels she needs to put a stop to it. It also helps that the girls are mostly normal outside of the host club, like during class or something.
Ouran Highschool Host Club is undoubtedly a parody of various aspects of otaku culture, especially that of shipping. But because it doesn't look down on the characters that participate in it, it never comes across as mean-spirited, which helps with the host scene's often comedic tone. Now, Ouran Highschool Host Club is often described as a reverse harem anime, since it stars a female protagonist alongside a bunch of good-looking boys. This is even stated by Kinemi herself.
It's a reverse harem! This is a reverse harem!
But honestly, as mentioned before, Ouran is a reverse harem anime while also not being a reverse harem anime, for 2 reasons.
One is that despite what Honey and Mori say at the end of episode 23, only 3 of the 6 boys have feelings towards Haruhi, and some of them aren't even aware of it in the anime. Usually both harem and reverse harem manga and anime have all the characters be in love and have feelings for the main character, male or female. But here, it's just some of them. The second reason is that our main heroine Haruhi would rather not be in this situation. Another aspect to harem and reverse harem manga and anime is that the main protagonist crushes on all the potential romantic options presented to them. Haruhi, at least in the part that the anime covers from the manga, does not, because she could honestly care less about this entire situation. As mentioned before, most other shoujo and reverse harem heroines, at least at the time, would be delighted and excited to be in the same situation that Haruhi has found herself in. But Haruhi doesn't, and I think the main reason that the anime comes across as not a reverse harem anime, despite usually being labeled as such, is because of the episodes that we are presented from their manga chapter counterparts. In this part of the manga story, it's all about crazy antics and the characters' individual arcs, rather than full romance. Right now, Haruhi is just learning about all these boys' personalities and backstories, so the romance storylines come later in the manga, that of which the anime doesn't get into in its 26-episode runtime.
In the end, the fact that Ouran is a reverse harem anime, despite not exactly being a reverse harem anime, is one of the aspects that make it unique. Ouran Highschool Host Club might not feature the best English dub out there, but it definitely features the English dub that I hold the most love towards in my heart. Ouran was my first real venture in the anime, so these voice actors were the first big voices that I heard in anime dubbing. So this dub is really nostalgic for me and the one that I love the most.
In the host club, you got Caitlin Glass as Haruhi, the Screaming Broccoli Man as Tamaki, J. Michael Tatum as Kyoya, Todd Haberkorn as Hikaru, Greg Ayres as Karu, Lucy Christian as Honey, and Travis Willingham as Mori. In the supporting cast, you've got great performances of Monica Riel as Renge, Patrick Ziltz as Nekazawa, Christopher Sabat as Kasanoda, Stephanie Young as Benio, and Mike McFarland as Ranka. Even the performances of one-off characters are great, like Laura Bailey as Kaneko, Sony Strait as Misuzu, Christina Otten as Fuyumi, Aaron Dismick as Chika, and Kyle Habert as Soga.
It's such a great and amazing cast where you can tell the love and dedication that they had to their performances. It makes some of the dialogue even funnier and the emotional moments are genuine. This especially comes through when you listen to the commentary tracks. All around, it's a great cast that I hold dear to my heart. Even though the Japanese performances are equally as good, I mean, Mamoru Miyano's performance as Tamaki is fucking god tier, and you've got freaking Dio as Ranka, the English dub of Ouran Highschool Host Club is one of my personal favorite English dubs in an anime. Also, it has some of the funniest bloopers out there. Just take a listen to some of them.
It's just on the cheek, right? You should accept it. It'll commemorate your graduation from being a total whore.
What is it now, Daddy?
Oh.
Really? Hey, you should make the cross-dresser homo person do all your I'm not here to carry tea sets. I'm here to learn how to make it with a lady.
Mori likes seashells. Skinny has a cavity.
Ouran, for men. Kaoru, Brazilian waxes are for women only.
She's a model employee, really. It's a shame I can't pay her anything. I got more time with that first part. Slow down. Slow down, baby. I love you. I love you. I love you!
You are quite an exquisite seamstress.
Hey there, bird.
All right, Demon Bird. Don't think you've won. I will keep you trapped in this box until you tell me where the princess is.
It flew away.
Get my gun.
Don't any of you care that Kasanoda went to see Haruhi, who is changing clothes? I.e. disrobing? I.e. getting naked? Nude? In the buff? Au natural? Posing for a picture? Fine.
Oh, gosh, what is this show? Lock it up! Lock it up!
If I did have a critique to the dub of Ouran, it would be that in describing Ranka and Misuzu, some of the characters will call them a tranny and their work at the tranny bar. Now, for those who don't know, the term tranny is a derogatory term for a transgender, transsexual, transvestite, or cross-dressing person. It wasn't until the 2010s that the term would come under scrutiny and people wanting to not be transphobic would stop using it. Unfortunately, the English dub for Ouran was made in 2008, a time when the term was still used to describe characters like Ranka and Misuzu. And hell, even the official English release of the original manga will use the term tranny. Now, why not use crossdresser or the slightly less offensive term of transvestite? Well, there's some context to it. In the Japanese version, when describing Ranka and Misuzu, the characters will use the term okama. For those who don't know, okama is a Japanese slang for homosexual or transvestite, literally meaning a pot or a kettle. This word, always with the honorific prefix O, refers to a gay man, especially one who is viewed as effeminate or a drag man. Most anime fans would be familiar with the term otaku from One Piece with the characters of Emperor Ivankov, Mr. Two and their Okama dance, and the island that Sanji finds himself trapped in. But anyway, my best guess is that since Okama is a Japanese slang term used to describe drag queens and cross-dressing individuals, the English dub did the equivalent by using the slang term of tranny. It's not okay, and it's definitely a product of the time, and is the one sticking point that I have to what is otherwise an English dub that I love to death. This actually segues into the negatives that I have of Ouran High School Host Club, and before I get into that, I want to make one thing clear. A piece of media like a TV show, a movie, or a video game can be your favorite thing of all time, and yet you can still have some criticisms towards it. For example, I don't think I could enjoy Kingdom Hearts as much as I do if I didn't also make fun of it a lot, because it is really easy. So even though I do have 3 negatives with Ouran, it is still my favorite anime of all time. And the first one is, well, I have no choice but to talk about it. It's the beach episode.
Over the past couple of years, the 8th episode of Ouran High School Host Club has gone over new scrutiny for its small amount of misogyny and a certain scene that hasn't aged that well. And during this recent rewatch, I decided to keep some of those criticisms in mind, so yeah, let's talk about them. When some local boys harass some of the girls, Haruhi goes in to defend them, and in the process, she gets pushed over a cliff and into the water and is saved by Tamaki. Tamaki gets angry at Haruhi for thinking that she could fend off 2 boys despite the fact that she's a girl. Haruhi's argument is that it doesn't matter that she's a girl, she saw someone in trouble and wanted to help. But later in the episode, Haruhi realizes that Tamaki and the rest of the host club were just worried about her, considering that she doesn't exactly know how to defend herself. Haruhi ultimately learning that she should start to rely on others, instead of always relying on herself like she's done in the past. Well, that's a nice sentiment and all, and goes into Haruhi's growing character arc throughout the anime that helps her to open up more and bring more people into her life. The way that it is executed oozes with misogyny. Mostly in the way that Tamaki states that girls are too weak to fight boys, instead of something like a small person should take on 2 brutes by themselves. The message does come across, but again, not executed that well through modern viewpoints and ideals. It also doesn't help that this is the same episode where Kyoya threatens to rape Haruhi in order to teach her this lesson, to not always let her guard down around others and rely on herself all the time, making her understand that she is a girl. Haruhi knowing that Kyoya would never do it because he would have nothing to gain from it, which is followed up on in episode 17. I'm sorry, but teaching a lesson or not, and even though you were never planning to do it, threatening rape is not okay. Especially since his action is quickly shrugged off by the characters and the narrative as a whole, being treated as acceptable because he was just pretending in order to teach her a lesson. Plus, Haruhi is not fazed by it whatsoever just because she knows that Kyoya would never do it. No matter in what context, threatening rape is not okay, and no matter how well the scene is executed through the animation and voice acting, it isn't something that should be accepted without a second thought. It puts a big stain on what is otherwise a brilliant character of Kyoya. In the end though, I still do love this episode for its great humor throughout, seeing Haruhi in a cute frilly dress, and the great Tamaki and Haruhi scene towards the end.
While I may not call it the best anime beach episode like I did 4 years ago, I still love it to death along with the other 25 episodes. My next negative that I have towards the anime has to do with the 2 honey-centric episodes, episodes 12 and 18. The episodes themselves are great for the most part, bringing in a lot of laughs, but I sometimes felt that the heart of both episodes were missing in comparison to their manga chapter counterparts.
While both equivalent chapters in the manga try to go for a more sentimental ending, the anime chooses to go with a more comedic angle for both episodes ending. And it's a shame because I like both of these ending moments in the manga, and it kind of causes the events of each episode to be kind of obsolete. And in episode 18's case, makes Honey kind of a terrible big brother to Chica.
Again, I do love these two episodes, but their endings do make them my least favorite episodes. And my last criticism is that the last two episodes, which are all mostly anime original, are a little of a weak way for the anime to go out.
While the events of the episodes are fine for the most part, it's more in Haruhi's character shift that I take issue with. By the end of the anime, her feelings towards Tamaki and the host club seem to come out of nowhere. I'm not saying that these feelings could never happen, but judging by the 24 episodes that came before, it's just not there yet. And like most anime that don't have a concrete ending because the manga is still ongoing, most of the characters' relationships and dynamics aren't concluded that nicely. Again, like I mentioned with my other criticisms, I do love these two episodes. I happen to find Eclair's character arc throughout both episodes to be rather compelling, especially since the anime uses visual storytelling in order to convey it.
I was going to give him the opportunity to see his mother again. He's such a fool. But even so, even for someone like me, he still smiled.
But in the end, I will admit that it is a little weak way for the anime to go out, which is why we should get a season 2. Alright, bitches and bros and non-binary hoes, I think I've said my piece. Ouran High School Host Club is still, and will probably forever be, my favorite anime of all time. Even if I have some problems with it, like the beach episode not holding up too well, the endings of the Honey episodes not being good when compared to the original manga's version, and the final 2 episodes are a little of a weak way for the anime to go out. But who gives a shit? That doesn't matter to me. Ouran High School Host Club has great animation courtesy of Studio Bones, some of my favorite characters in anime with great personalities and dynamics, side-splitting comedy, compelling drama, and the two genres never clash, by the way, not to mention that most of the drama enhances certain scenes from the original manga, the music is lovely, it's a great parody of otaku culture and diverse harem genre, and the English dub of the anime is the one that I hold the most to my heart. And there's even more things that I love about Ouran High School Host Club that I just don't have the time to talk about in this video. And I could talk for hours about all of the reasons that this anime deserves a season 2 and beyond in order to adapt the rest of the manga. Give me that fist bump, goddammit! I love this anime so goddamn much and nothing is ever going to change that. Not even the actions of one screamy broccoli man. I'm going to give Ouran High School Host Club a critical score of an A- and a personal score of an A+. Did you expect anything less? And there it is, my final video of my top 10 anime project. And let me tell you, that took way longer than I thought it was going to. My bottom surgery, those 200 episodes of Sailor Moon, and other personal stuff definitely didn't help. But I finally finished what I set out to do about a year and a half ago. Now, if you've seen my update video back in October of 2020, or follow me on Twitter, then you know that I'm not going to be doing frequent uploads anymore. I will 100% be doing my quarterly seasonal anime spotlight video, and my upload the occasional video if something comes to mind. So continue to subscribe if that sounds good to you, and you can always follow me on Twitter at TransAnimeLover. Thanks for sticking with me in this top 10 anime project and for all the years that I've been messing around with this silly channel of mine.
Remember, you're welcome to visit us in Music Room 3 whenever you'd like to.
The Ouran Host Club will be waiting for you.
And we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
We'll see you then.